And now, the only survival show that survived a roadside checkpoint airsoft battle. In this episode, we sit down with James Price. We're going to discuss surviving non-permissive environments armed only with your mouth and cunning. Howdy, and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode 140. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. We'll bring out the good booze and the dancing girls. It's James Price time again, boys and girls. James, welcome back to the show, dude.
How you doing, Aaron, man? Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, I was going to say hide the sheep, but, Jason missed out on the evening here, so it's just you and I.
Yeah, I know. This time I managed to get the time difference right, unlike the other ones, but then I was getting my equipment to work, so it seems to be jinxed every time I have a podcast with you guys.
Well, too funny, man. Well, we have a pretty cool show lined up for everybody today. And to start with, we were going to dive into probably one of the most interesting lessons I thought, besides how not to fall over your rifle when getting in and out of a vehicle or sweeping your buddies with it. But it was actually something really important as far as dealing with checkpoints. And that's something that a lot of people think about as far as if we get into a without rule of law situation or anything like that. So, man, take it away. Where do we begin with this? It's such a big topic.
Well, I mean, you mentioned checkpoints, and that's one of the main learning points in the mobile scout school is doing checkpoints, not necessarily because you're going to come up to a checkpoint with a bunch of third world guys waving AK-47s everywhere. It's more of an opportunity for you to learn your verbal skills, to teamwork, put everything kind of into play so that you can make a lot of mistakes, so you can see what your mistakes are. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was the real tactical skills that I've used and everyone else I know who works overseas or works in high-risk jobs uses, which everyone thinks they think it's going to be shooting or E&E and all these other things. But as you learned and Jason learned in the Mobile Scout School, basically when it gets to the point of violence, you've already more or less failed.
Yeah.
It seems like people always concentrate their training time on that one moment, which they should. You need to have those skills and they need to be sharp if that happens. But
before we dive all the way in today, a quick message. Help us keep the lights on. Support the ITRH show and mission by becoming part of the Roving Horde Armada. You can learn more at itrh.net about all the great benefits membership gets you. Things like encrypted forums with member-only access to every episode ever produced by ITRH, including one that has never been aired before, a free copy of the book Owning Your Survival, 9 Steps for Surviving Survival and Preparedness, access to a 1-hour emergency kits for bugging out and bugging in class with special downloads. And that's just to name a few of the great things you get with your membership. Again, visit itrh.net for more details now. We're counting on supporting members just like you to help us keep the lights on. Now, back to James.
There needs to be an equal amount of training so that you can avoid those situations from happening when they come up. And especially now, I mean, just recently, there's been a lot of rioting and civil unrest in the United States in a bunch of major cities, people blocking the roads, people attacking people in vehicles, things like that, checkpoints, and not just checkpoints that aren't legal, just people setting them up or people blocking the roads. Police checkpoints too, because the cops are on edge. You got to know how to talk to them. You have to know how to talk to people. So today I thought I'd bring 3 of the skills that I think people should really work on. Now, I know people should work on. The lucky thing for everyone is that they're all free to learn, but they're extremely valuable, in my opinion, and I never really hear them mentioned. One of them I hear mentioned sometimes, but generally I don't really hear a lot of people or trainers talking about it. I guess because it doesn't sell classes. So nobody wants to go hear a lecture or anything like that. They want to dress up in camo and go shoot, which is fun, but you still got to learn some of the base skills.
Mm-hmm.
Emailed you earlier. We were messaging each other, and I had a bunch of titles for this.
Yeah.
So we have some bland ones and then some good ones. The bland one is 3 skills everyone in the prepper community should have, and they're not what you think. Then the other one was, this is the one I like, How to Kill Zombies and Get Laid in the Apocalypse.
Yes, sir.
The second title is probably more accurate because these are social skills, the human interaction skills, which you can use in all aspects of your life. In fact, when I learned these skills, everything in my life improved, everything from social to the ladies to work to clients and things like that. So out of everything you do in any situation, except for some guys blowing off, roadside bombs at you, you're talking to people, you're dealing with people. Without being too blowhardy, I'm going to get into it right off the bat, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, please do.
So these are basically skills that you need to learn to get out of bad situations. Or in the case of, even if you're not in a bad situation, get an extra gallon of gas, get through a checkpoint that's manned by police that you generally aren't letting people through. There are a lot of different situations these could be used in. The first one is one that accidentally came upon, but it's improv comedy. Now, most people here know what improv comedy is. There have been a lot of improv comedy shows on TV and things like that where the audience throws out a banana and Michigan and pizza, and then they have to make a comedy sketch right off the bat with it. A while ago, there was I met this really cute girl, and I wanted to go out with her, but I couldn't really get in a situation where I could get her alone. And she taught improv comedy one-on-one. So I hired her to teach me improv comedy. It's kind of my way to sneak in. In the end, I ended up learning a lot of really good skills from it. Now, what improv is basically it's talking about a subject you know nothing about from the frame of the current situation you're in. So it's just like it says, it's improvisational. Whatever situation you're in, whatever components are added to that situation, you will be able to work out some sort of verbal communication around it and focus that towards what you ultimately want. Pretty useful. It's a skill that everyone uses, and it's definitely a skill that you use in harder situations that could result in violence. Another thing is, I know as a fact that intelligence agents take improvisational training. It is already a standard that's used in the professional fields and the professional trades with operators and things like that. People who have to go to countries or places in America to be able to talk to people, get it through situations. So it's a proven skill. It's something that is used by people within the professional community. It isn't something I'm pulling out of my behind by any means.
To further your point, that was one of the things I know a lot of the people in the prepper community are familiar with Neil Strauss because of his book Emergency. But his book before that, The Game, which was really more, I mean, it was a much deeper book than people actually understand it for being.
That's a
But
great book too. It's an excellent book.
oh, it's an I mean, just from the writing alone. But after that, he was actually hired by, I believe, memory serves me right, and I should actually know this. It was the FBI hired him to come in and teach about not just persuasion, but methods of speaking to people, de-escalating situations and escalating situations, and doing stuff like that to actually build rapport, and then even flip people over to their side to, I guess, flip assets and things like that. It was pretty neat. So, I mean, that really, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not stuff that you're pulling out of your butt.
Yeah, another thing you were mentioning about the book, The Game, and pickup artists or PUAs, I suppose they call themselves, is another thing I know is that special forces guys do take training from pickup artists to learn how to interact with people and manipulate people. So it's kind of funny. I was talking to you before. I always said that the two skills for operating in hostile environments and the pickup community, a lot of these things connect together. They parallel each other because it's all interacting with
Mm-hmm.
people. One of the other things about improv and improvisational comedy is that comedy is a powerful weapon. Humor is a powerful weapon. Funny will de-escalate a situation fast. That's one thing. Because when I was out on checkpoints or dealing with third world corrupt cops and other situations like that, I would always try to do something funny to kind of lower their guard a little bit. And that's the second part is it puts people at ease. It makes them lower their guard. That's another advantage you have. Now you have the high ground with them simply by speaking and not doing anything physical. It's definitely a great skill to learn. Some basic fundamentals around it. One of the main tenets is yes and, which means someone says anything. I like pizza. You don't say, well, pizza's okay, but I prefer lasagna. There, you just killed the conversation. The conversation's dead. Now whoever's talking to you has time to think. So what you would say is like, oh, I love pizza too. Pepperoni's great. What do you think? It's a way to continue the conversation, keep their mind busy. So when someone's thinking, when they hit that section of their brain where the thought is going on, it turns on the reptile side of your brain because your mind is using all of its power to work out a situation or to find words to say something. and so you're not able to protect yourself from a saber-toothed tiger running at you, then that caveman side, that reptile brain kicks on, and that pure instinct. The nice thing about that is it basically means a person's dumb as he's thinking. So it's definitely a way to manipulate the situation to get the high ground, and you don't have to raise a finger to do any of it. Yes, and that's really one of the simplest things. If you don't even bother to study this subject, just remember if you're in a situation that's going south, just yes, and that's the easiest one. And also, it focuses on the relationship between you and the person that you're talking to. It's a way for you to create a connection between the two of you. There are a whole bunch of things you can find it on Wikipedia if you need to. I actually have a bunch of links to some videos and some other places online where you can find classes. At the end of this podcast, I'll email you all these links and you can put it up on the show notes. But every town has a improv group. I live in this tiny little hillbilly town in Virginia with more cows than people, and there's an improv comedy group here. So you can go to these; they're free. Some of them might charge you $20 or something like that, but you will get a great skill out of it. But just the cost of a little bit of your time and maybe a couple bucks every now and then, and you'll make some friends, and it definitely helps with your other aspects of your social life.
And you touched on this point in the very beginning of the conversation, which is those social skills are so important. And they are the thing they're the social lubricant. I mean, a lot of people joke about alcohol being the social lubricant, but actually having those skills really is a lubricant that helps so many people get through their daily life and actually get ahead and be able to interact with other human beings. Because that is probably 80% of our life is really, and the challenges we run through in life are really just dealing with other people. Whether we're in the zombie apocalypse trying to pick up zombie strippers, or whether we're at a checkpoint, or even if we're just trying to get a promotion or trying to do something for networking for work related activities.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many people I know in this community because I've worked in the business for over 20 years now in the security business, and probably I've met 3 people in 20 years who have decent personalities. It's just I understand that you have good skills, but you got to learn how to talk to people because you're not going to get anywhere. These are the same guys I work with in Iraq who come up to a checkpoint and some Iraqi cop or military guy would start yelling at them, and then they'd immediately be like "F you," blah, 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 all these other things, and then we're stuck at a checkpoint for 8 hours.
Mhm.
So it's aggressiveness. There is a place for aggressiveness, and I'm going to touch on that on my third subject. But generally, you don't want to get to that point unless you absolutely have to. The second one I wanted to go over. This is my favorite. This is one I ran into because I was doing a lot of courier work, secret, top secret TSI courier work in Iraq for a while. I would run into a lot of intelligence guys, like real intelligence guys, like dudes who are like living in Baghdad and things like that. And the ones that were kind of cool with me, I'd ask them, "Is like, hey, what skills are really ones that you use the most?" And one that kept coming up all the time is called the facial coding action system, or micro expressions. Now, a
Mhm.
lot of y'all might recognize this. There's a TV show on a while ago called Lie to Me, which was really good.
Yeah, it was a
I
great
really
TV
like.
show.
Yeah, and that is actually based on it's more or less the life story of the guy who kind of created it, or at least turned it into the science that it is today, Dr. Paul Ekman. When I think it was back in the 60s, he was studying people's facial expressions. Like you can look at someone, you can tell if they're sad, they're happy, and other things like that. He started noticing patterns like deception, violence, anger, things like that. Where, like, if someone's smiling at you, but they want to kill you, things like that. But he wasn't really sure if it was culturally biased. Like, does a person in Morocco frown when they're happy, or things like that? So what he did is he went to, I believe it was Papua New Guinea, and he went to a tribe that had no human contact at all. No one from the outside has ever gone there. And he took thousands of photographs, had a translator with him, and proved that it is culture free. Sad is sad, angry is angry, and all these other things. So he created the facial active coding system, which is basically what every single emotion looks like. And these are subconscious. It's also part of the reptile brain. If you're sad or if you're lying, they'll be there at least a little bit. And the smallest versions of it are called micro expressions, where they only come up for a quarter second or something like that. But they are visible if you're looking for them. So he put together a whole system based on the entire thing that is now used by the TSA. It's used by every single intelligence agency on the entire planet. And interestingly enough, it's used by Pixar. One of the reasons that people like Pixar so much is every single facial expression on every single cartoon character they have is a real human emotional, visual emotional representation of whatever they're feeling.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why children and adults like it so much, because usually there's a disconnect with cartoons between emotions and things like that. But it's basically just visual. When a character's sad, he looks sad the same way a human looks sad. I watched their Pixar movies like real carefully after I heard about this, and they put micro expressions in there too to hit your subconscious. So it's really fascinating. But
Huh.
this isn't pop science. It's not a soft science. It's an actual recognized science. It's a real thing. And like the first one I went over, it's free. It's free to learn. I have a link to Dr. Ekman's website where you can go and you can take the entire facial coding index system course for nothing. And there are tons of his students and his lectures and things like that online. But I'll send you that link. You put it in the show notes. But you can learn it for free. Then you just practice it as your day goes. It's a great skill. I've been at checkpoints in Iraq where the Iraqi guy is talking in Arabic to my translator, and I knew he was lying simply because I recognized his facial expressions. I recognized the micro expressions of deceit and anger, disgust. And then my translator would be like, "Oh, he says it's fine. There's nothing up ahead." Da da da. I'd say, "No, he's lying. He's lying, and he's angry."
Uh,
And then my translator would be like, "No, he's nice to me. He's really polite." I was like, "Nah, dude, he's angry. We're not going to go on that road. We're going to take an alternate route." Later, you go through you check on the contractor's center. There's a big center set up to monitor all the contractors, and you see that another convoy got hit 2 hours after you went through.
oh, wow.
So yes, it's extremely valuable to have. It also helps in your personal life. I mean, there are two of my favorite micro expressions that happen. One is when someone says yes, absolutely, but they're shaking their head no. Once you start looking for it, you see it all the time, which means they're lying. They really mean no. But
Hmm.
it's very small. Sometimes it'll just be one little quarter inch to the side, but it's there.
Huh.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat. Until I did this, I never noticed any of these things. But once I started, every time I look at someone, I actually have to turn it off now. So if just to have a good time with my friends and things like that. The other one is a shrug. Like when you shrug, you're like, oh, I don't know, dude. You'll see someone give you an answer I'll be like, are you absolutely sure that I get this one in the grocery store a lot. I says, are you absolutely sure that the tomatoes are on aisle 12? They're like, yeah, I'm positive. And they'll shrug. That means, yeah,
It's kind of a,
those are kind of my two favorite ones. It's a good way for people to kind of just start on it, to kind of get in that little bit of a mindset. And it's not a lossy skill either. Once you lock it into your brain, it's there forever.
mhm. Awesome stuff, man. Yeah. I mean, that even goes back to like what you were talking about as far as how many times that having that kind of knowledge saved your bacon in situations that most people are just going, oh, okay, and kept on trucking down the road and gotten hit by an IED or molested by a platypus or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
remember one of the first times I really saw deception. I was actually on leave, and it was a friend of mine's wife, and she said something like, "I'm going out with my friends," and I'm like, "Ooh, bro, I don't know. You might want to follow her." They're divorced now, so she got the house though, so all squared away, I suppose. The life of a contractor: divorces and bad credit record. Contractors are the only people who make like $300,000 a year, and their FICO score is like 3.
Oh my God.
The last one, and this one is one that's a little harder to learn, and it takes practice, and you got to train with someone to do it. It's called verbal aggressiveness. You can Google this, it's on Wikipedia. This one is actually a weapon. Unlike the other ones, which are more manipulation, this one is actually a weapon that you can use to harm people if you want to. It's a common trait in sociopaths,
Hmm.
basically used to gain control of a situation or an individual. Like Ted Bundy, as a guy, he convinced people to come over to his house so he can murder them. Complete strangers, he would convince to do things that normally they would never do. A lot of people hear verbal aggressiveness and they think it's just being a loudmouth braggart like me, but it's an actual skill that some people are inherently born with, mostly the crazy people. But then it's one that you can learn after a while after practicing. Basically, what you do is it's the art of changing someone's mood. If you want to make them sad, angry, annoyed, embarrassed, humiliated, depressed, and then once you get them at that emotional level you want, you jump in and you basically change the situation into what you want. Now, it sounds like that's a horrible thing to do to people, and it is. It is. Like I said, it's mostly people who chop people up and make them into lampshades that use this. But it can also, yeah, it's a extremely good trait of a leader. No matter what happens, if you're in a situation here in the States with civil unrest or natural disasters or overseas or in any situation, some guy walks up to you with a pistol and wants your wallet when you're out with your wife, you're always with someone. It's basically, and someone has to take charge. And previously, when men faced each other on a battlefield, they always had officers, and there was a gentleman's agreement not to target officers because people need to be led in stressful situations. Someone has to take charge, and this gives you the ability to take someone who's sad, scared, angry, all these other things, and instill confidence in them through the way that you speak to them. And it also allows you to control an argument. So I spoke to before at checkpoints and other places like that, there will be situations in your life where things get very, very aggressive verbally. And so what you want to do is kind of steer those into more the direction that you want. It's not an easy skill to learn, and I don't believe there's any formal class on it. There's a lot of academic papers and white papers and things like that written about it. But the couple things of guys I've trained and worked with or given advice to, or companies that I consult with, the couple main things that I tell them to take where you can't actually sit down in a classroom or watch YouTube videos or things like that. One is verbal judo, which is used by police officers, law enforcement, and things like that. It's a way to be aggressive with someone, but to de-escalate a situation. And a lot of that, what they do, because I took that course back in the 90s, and I understand it's way, way better now.
Hmm.
That's basically verbal aggressiveness. It's teaching you how to use verbal aggressiveness to not get hurt or at least control the situation so that someone who wants to fight, you're going to be like, no, you're not going to fight, So it's a way to change it into that. There are courses online and there are courses on YouTube and things like that to get you familiar with. I would suggest that if you have the time or the money, I think it's a 1-day class too. It's not very long. If you get a chance to, definitely take that class because that is one of the training classes. That's like 2 or 3 on my list of the classes I've taken that I use every single day, all the time. It's being able to present yourself, have presence and things like that. That is definitely worth the money, 100%.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's neat. Who's in a situation the most where they're dealing with verbally aggressive, jerks, cops, right? So I figure that they're the ones who know it the best. Another one is one that you can kind of practice on your own is simply having presence when you speak. Instead of saying like, well, okay, if you want to go down there and do that and suppose it's okay. You can't talk to people like that, even if you're 100% sure about what you're saying, as in, yes, you need to go down the road and do this. It doesn't present presence. It makes you sound timid, especially as a man. So when you speak to someone, you just need to say, go down the road, go to the right, stay down there. That type of voice, I call it my knife hand voice, is all drill sergeants, all military people have this voice. It's your dad yelling at you when you're a kid. Hey, quit it, knock it off. It's a very caveman-y reptile brain thing to go to bed again, and it's ingrained into you as a child. Anything you learn between the ages of 1 and 9 are there for the rest of your life. That's why there's so many crazy girls without dads. That's that period where you really absorb everything. But if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have strip clubs. So I'm not complaining about it by any means. But
that's
I've done experiments where just randomly I'd be talking to my friends or people on the street. I'd be like, hey, stand over there. And people get up when they hear that voice. It's just, like I said, it's there. It's your dad telling you to do something. So learning how to have presence. I think there are classes online and things like that you can talk. But one of the things when I was learning this, because when I was younger, especially in my early 20s and definitely in my teens, I was very timid. I was very shy. And so I would, I kind of talk like this, like I'm tripping over my words and things like that. You have these great voice recorder pens and just record yourself the whole day as you try. And you'll see tics that you have. I used to say really all the time. That takes people out of the conversation. Like, really? Well, I really need to. There are a lot of tics in your vocabulary that basically make you sound like an idiot or just annoy people. That combined with not being able to convey information well and not having a good speaking voice. Another thing you can learn to do with that, and I believe it's free, is Toastmasters. Learn how to get in front of a crowd, learn how to speak to people, which will also help you get over shyness. But generally, I think people are kind of shy, especially in situations where they don't interact outside of their own social groups much. Shyness isn't going to help you when six people are blocking the road. It's not going to help you when you're getting arrested. It's not going to help you for when people are going house to house, or when you're trying to get an extra case of water during a natural disaster for your kids. It's not going to happen. Have to learn how to have that aggressiveness in your voice, or at least have presence. Presence is always a word used by instructors. You can find some good stuff on it online. I got a couple of links for the listeners, but just in general, everyone needs to have presence. So that's a big one. And once you start practicing it, listening to yourself, learning how to speak, and have that voice of authority, you'll actually notice other things in your life too change, that people will take you more seriously. People will come to you for advice more and things like that. If you sound like you, I think there was a test recently I read where there's actually a scientific name for people who speak that way, like the naturals, the ones who are born that way.
Yeah.
And it shows that with the right tone, you can be in a board meeting talking about how of course, it's CEOs again, which most of them are sociopaths, convincing people that the business is fine when repossession companies are taking the computers out of the back room. It's a way to exert authority. So it's definitely another good skill to have. Falls into all the first two, because when you combined all these together, you got a great skill set there. But just in general, the other thing is nobody likes to hear some dude who's like, I don't know, maybe go down there. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
You sound like a squirrel. It's stupid. Every time, the second I hear some dude start talking to that, now I just start yelling at him. I'm like, dude, stop doing the squeaky voice thing. Talk to a man. Look at me in my eyes. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an asshole, so. But I'm helping them. Really, I'm helping them. I'm
Yes, you
not doing it
are.
for myself, honestly. No, not right. I'm doing it because it annoys me.
And to your point about Toastmasters, that was a really great one, because I think it's easy to become an information junkie, no matter what the subject matter is. But even with this stuff, and perhaps even especially with this stuff, it's easy to become an information junkie and simply to read about this stuff. But it doesn't come if you're not a natural, it doesn't come easily, and it takes regular practice, and it takes practice over an extended period of time before it becomes ingrained in your personality. And that's
Oh
it's
yeah, like less than 1% of people are natural that way. It's
yeah,
only that the true alphas.
yeah,
Everyone else generally is like,
yeah.
how you doing?
I mean, and a lot of it is like gunfighting. I mean, gunfighting takes a lot of practice to be proficient at it, to be fast at it, to be accurate with it. And it's the same thing with being able to speak and be able to connect with people and to have presence and to be able to be persuasive. It's much in the same way of in firearms, it's a diminishing skill. Or even once you have that skill, it takes you a while to get warmed up. So you kind of almost have to always stay in state and really make it part of who you are, so that when you need it, it's there.
It eventually does become who you are.
Exactly.
Because like I said before, I was very shy. In my early 20s, for me to walk up and talk to a girl, oh my God, dude. It was like if someone put a shotgun to me and forced me to rob a bank, I would have preferred to do that. So it's just because I didn't have social skills. And the thing is, nobody teaches you social skills.
Yeah.
High school is about memorization. That's it. There's no critical thinking. There's no research. There's nothing like that. And so most people don't get a chance to actually learn how to interact with people. Like I said before, I was shy. I was not confident in myself and all these other things. And now look at the blowhard guy I turned into with all these skills,
I know. Look at that.
I can turn it down, though. I told you earlier today I was over at my mom and dad's house because I knew your podcast, I didn't want to be like just dropping F-bombs, especially lately, because I just came from a couple training sessions and working with my guys. And we make prison guards blush when we talk. So I was like, man, I'm just going to sound like some just foul person. And it is intellectually lazy to put a point across by F this or F that, things like that. They have their place in academia or things like that to kind of shock people, but I don't think it does convey information very well. But anyway, I went over to my parents' house, so hang out with them. So because there's no cursing in my parents' house, that's not happening. My mom will wash my mouth out with soap as a 42-year-old man. So, especially the hand soap. I think we talked about that earlier.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to do that. I have to tone down who I am when I'm around there, which is also a skill. You can learn, turn it on, turn it up, or things like that. But overall, having these skills, having this presence, understanding how to read people, these things like that, Once you get it, and it's not even on all the time, it just becomes who you are. It's very life changing. So whether or not you're worried about situations like that or anything else, just these simple things that are free can help all aspects of your life, your tactical training, your preparedness, relationships, all these things. Like right now, just because I'm able to be social, I'm able to approach people, men and women, men not for anything shady, but just to meet people. It's it's I have contacts that federal agencies, intelligence agencies don't have. I mean, I know people who work at high level government jobs to CEOs, multimillionaires, people who run the power grids and the phone systems and things like that. These are the people you want to know when something happens.
Hmm.
But if you don't have a good personality or you come off very, nobody wants to hang out with someone boring, basically. So if you don't have these skills, it's great. You get together with your other prepper buddies. You got 10 of you. What are you going to do? You got no power. You're not on the emergency list for the cell phones to push your calls through. You don't know anyone who works in the train industry, which is still be running after things go, in airlines, and that can get you ammunition, who are in the military, or a multimillionaire who can say, hey, you want to get your family out of the country? We're taking mine too. Give me $1 million and I have a plane land here in 2 hours. These are people you need to know for all aspects. Also, I get a lot of work out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I meet some cool people. I met you. No matter what, it will improve your standing in life without sounding too cheesy, but it'll make your life better, make it easier. And easy, everyone's like, oh, I want to take the hard way. No, don't take the hard. If there is an easy way, take it, because that frees your time and your mind up for more important things. So that's enough from Grandpa James here preaching it.
No, dude, that was awesome stuff. And I think actually one of the things you touched on circles that will circle us back in just a moment, and people will see where this connects. But one of the other classes that you've been teaching is domestic protector. And this, perhaps the dad voice will come up here in just a few minutes. But I thought it was so important. And I think it's such an interesting class that you're doing with that too, because it's something that people don't think about. They spend all this time training, hopefully not just standing in a square box at a shooting range, but actually moving and all this other stuff. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem comes in, even and that they're only training to protect themselves. There's no kind of moving objects. There's no unknown variables really going on in that training. And even if you do training like what Jason and I came and did with you for your mobile scout class, you're working with other people that also have training and also have either similar experience or very similar experience. And everybody talks about, oh, I'd lay down my life for any of my family members, but none of them really have gone on to seek out the education for, hey, how do I do this so that I don't necessarily have to lay down my life and I can properly protect those around me that don't have that training or don't have that experience?
Yeah, that's a really neat course that we kind of came up on the fly. Domestic protector is myself, my business partner, Josh. Both of us come from an executive protection background, or bodyguard, or for the British listeners, CP is basically, bodyguard protecting people. Not so much what you see with the president, but most domestic bodyguard gigs or executive, I hate the word bodyguard because it's like some big dude with shades on.
1980s stuff.
Yeah, yeah, which is still prevalent in the industry, but that's a whole nother subject. I prefer to call it EP. So for the listeners, when I say EP, it's executive protection, which is a bodyguard. But what an EP person is they're a trained professional, specifically trained not in the Secret Service style or DSS style, which is way, way different, in the civilian style of protecting people. And what that is generally one person, maybe two, if you're lucky on a detail. You might have six guys. Actually, when you have six guys on a detail, then it's just a clown show because nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody's in charge. It's silly, but it's protecting an individual when a threat comes to them. Like, you've seen in movies, a guy jumps out with a pistol when he starts shooting, and then all the Secret Service guys jump on him. It's very similar to that, but what a lot of it is in domestic protector is the movements that you need to do to, one, shield the person that you're with, because let's face it, like you said before, where do all these shootings and stuff you hear on TV, does it happen at a shooting range? No, it never happens at a shooting range. It happens at a shopping mall, it happens at McDonald's, it happens at a school. It happens in places where you're not going to be with your buddies. You're going to be with a family member. You're going to be with, for lack of a better word, a civilian. And this comes back to like the sheepdog thing that your episode on being a leader and in your community and with your family and things like that, which is an excellent episode,
No, thanks, man.
is it is your responsibility as the stronger trained person to protect the people that you're with. And not only that, to protect other innocent people that are with you. You have the skill. You know how to shoot. You're carrying a firearm. You took that responsibility, which is a very, very big responsibility, to carry a firearm concealed when you're in public for the purposes of defending yourself. That doesn't mean that, when somebody starts shooting up a shopping mall and you're with your wife and kids, you just start shooting, blasting at the guy, leaving your kids standing in the middle of the floor crying, standing up, and your wife who's frozen also standing up in the front of everyone. That is not a sheepdog. That is not protecting people who need to be protected. But the thing is, like you said, guys, going to these training classes, great. You have shooting skills. With shooting, I don't even put it on a level as a skill. You should know how to drive. You should know how to, ride a bicycle, and you should know how to shoot. So I don't even consider shooting a skill. It's just something you should know, and you should be proficient at it to the point that you don't have to think about it the same way that you drive a car. Do you know how to protect someone? No, you really don't. You think that you do because you can pull out your gun and shoot someone. Well, during that quarter second, half second, depends how fast you are, and you put sights on the guy, he's already fired 8 times. You have to learn the mechanics of how to move people who are untrained, scared, and are literally scared stiff to a situation where you either push them out of the way or you shield them with your body. And you have to also know how to properly shield someone with your body. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. These are things that I saw a big hole in training with that, because I try to be realistic about situations that I'll be in, especially now that I live in the States as opposed to overseas. And I see myself in a situation where, I'm probably not wearing body armor. I'm carrying a smaller handgun. I don't even like handguns. I'm a rifle guy. I rarely carried a handgun in Iraq the whole time I was there. So I started really doing a lot of research and studying and thought and consulting with people who are way, way more experienced and smarter than myself. And that's one of the biggest holes I saw. What do you do when you're with your wife and kid and somebody starts shooting? And the lucky thing about it is, since I've been in the protective industry, I started out in EP way longer than I'd like to admit ago. This is one of my base skills. It's something I know very well. There's probably about 4 or 5 things I'm really good at. It's like executive protection, convoy operations. I think I'm a decent teacher and things like that. Managing money, picking the right women to date, that's way, way on the other side. So this is something I'm good at. I'm not saying that to brag, but I have the experience. I've been doing this for 20 years. So, and myself, and then some of the younger guys like Josh, who works with us, who has very recent training in the executive protection field, and other guys I know who are still active around the world. So we basically did the same thing that we did with the Mobile Scout School, which was based off of mobile operations in a third world country. And then we modified it for the stateside soft skin vehicles. We did the same thing with the single. There's tons of skills in executive protection. We took the one skill out of it: protecting someone while you fire your gun, getting someone out of the way, moving people when they can't move. We just took that small block of instruction in executive protection training, and then we civilianized it, tried it, changed it again, worked out all the bugs in it. And now we're offering this class, the domestic protector. And I think it's really good. I really like it. It's practical. It's a skill. It's a trade. It'll be a fun class, definitely, but you're going to learn a trade. You're going to learn how to protect someone. You're going to learn how to do it in blocks, 3-4 minute blocks that you can take home with you, train on the blocks on your own. But at least you'll know what to do if something happens. And confidence has a lot to do with stressful situations. If you already know what to do, that's one stress block taken out of the stress wall. So a little less always helps, even if you aren't perfect. But at least there's something you know how to do. You're not going to have to search your brain for it. I'm really proud of this class. I think it's a really good class, and I hope it catches on. I really do. I would love that to have more people take it, especially those with families.
You touched on something interesting, and it was, I think, the first time I really realized that freezing was much more likely than panic was after reading The Unthinkable, which was really interesting and basically turned a lot of things that I thought, it took them and just turned them on its head. And you brought that up, that people will most likely freeze in these situations, people that don't have training and aren't used to dealing with these kind of stressful situations. So how do you get somebody to unfreeze in a situation like that? Is it just using the dad voice, or?
It can be that, but generally, I mean, you don't have a time to talk to someone in a situation like that. So
Mm.
it's just simple body mechanics. If anyone here has done like martial arts, especially ones that kind of you manipulate the body more like jujitsu or aikido and things like that, it's simply knowing this. It's you knowing the center of gravity, what part of the body you move, depending on if they're sitting, standing, bending over, how big they are, things like that, to basically get them to move because someone will be scared stiff, but I know I keep saying reptile brain, but that is something I just study extensively because that's the brain that you use when you're under stress. Even if someone's scared stiff, the reptile brain will not let you fall over. It just won't. If you're scared stiff and you can't move and someone shoves you over, you're not going to fall over like a plank of wood. Your legs will still move.
Hmm.
So it's knowing what point is the weakest point in the body to pull someone to do that. Obviously, not the arm, which I see all the time. You can't move someone by their arm. I'm sure a lot of us have seen people in bad relationships. You know,
Hmm.
you can't get anyone to go anywhere by yanking their arm. So,
Mm.
and that is actually our natural instinct is to grab the arm. You got to break that.
Mm.
That's what we teach in the class, where and how to do it. Verbal stuff doesn't really come into play as much there. It's just simply technique, knowing how to. And then also, when you step out in front of someone, what do? You just stand in front of them? No, you got to stand in front of them. You got to hold them there. You got to make sure they're there, which touches on another skill, which I am actually not very good with. And I've been shooting a lot lately because I try to imagine the situations I come into, and pretty much all of them have me only shooting with one hand from a handgun.
Mm.
So this is also, and that was a skill taught to me originally in executive protection, because in executive protection, one hand is generally always doing something, moving the client around, pushing people out of the way, opening up a door. I was used to be really good at it, so I've
Hmm.
had to get that skill back. So you got to look, it's tailoring your training around where you're operating, where you're most likely going to be. So now when I train, one hand all the time. I never use both hands anymore, which is inaccurate, but like anything else, you learn how to ride a bike, you learn how to shoot pretty accurately with one hand.
Yeah.
So we kind of let students touch on things like that and learn their weaknesses. That's the number one thing in all the classes I teach. I know there is a trend in a lot of schools, a lot of good ones, mostly bad ones, where failure is considered a bad thing. I consider failure. I'm happy when I fail because that's what I want to see. I want to see my failure points. That's why when I do handgun training, I use a high point that I haven't cleaned in a year. That's what I use when I train with my handgun. I know how to run a clean gun. I can run 1,000 rounds through a Glock with my eyes closed. Can I do it with a high point that's like got an inch of crap mist over it? No. So that's what I do. I train, always want to train. I want to get to that point of failure. And that's what all of my teaching, the training at DBM Training Center, it's all focused around pushing you until you fail. Failure is our goal. We want everyone to fail at every moment that they can, because our professional instructors, they see it, we correct it, and then we make you do the same thing again under a high stress situation to make that failure happen again until you eventually knock it off. Like I said, that's where the dad voice goes in. Stop it.
Yeah. And you make them do it in 110-degree heat.
Yeah, I love that, man. We were in Vegas recently. It was miserable, but it was a great class. You have to be fatigued and stressed, because if you're good at your worst, then you're great at your best.
Oh, man, that is
So
an excellent point you just made. And I know one of the other things that you teach in the class is actually threat assessment and profiling. Where does that come into play?
especially now with all this civil unrest, or I was talking to some students a few weekends ago about these are guys that are preppers, well prepared, well trained. They don't own a map.
Oh my
They don't
God.
own a paper map of the city and state they live in. You know what? The first thing that happens during a natural disaster, a guy at Sprint or whoever who works for the United States government, he does not work for the company, he does not take orders to him, presses a button. Well, now it's probably a computer code, but in my mind, I see it as like a red button that turns off everyone's phone services except for certain people on a list that they consider essential personnel, like the mayor, the fire department, the emergency services. So you know what happens when a hurricane comes through? Your phone doesn't work anymore. You don't have Google Maps. Most people in their 20s don't even know how to go anywhere with the map. So I tell them, hey, how can you be prepared? You know every single road in the state. No, of course not. So you got to have road maps. My car's filled with road maps in the back of it. It's just simple things like that help you be prepared and help change your mindset and kind of get you off of the technology crunch, which is easy for me because I hate technology and it hates me even more. So I think I got off subject though. What were you originally talking about?
No, just threat assessment.
Yeah, threat assessment. Sorry. Okay, yeah, threat assessment. Yeah, it's like having a map. The biggest thing about threat assessment for me is being able to actually move somewhere. Paying attention to the situations around you. There's civil unrest. You know it's coming. Very few times have 100 people just start burning down a building and no one knew about it, or
Hmm.
a hurricane comes, or anything happens, a loved one gets sick and you got to go to the hospital. You know how many people every year crash on the way to the hospital because they have someone who's injured, a family member who's injured in their car? They don't even know how to get there. They don't know what side roads to take in an emergency if there's lots of traffic. So it's being prepared, just like your whole website, podcast, everything we do every day is to prepare for things. We buy insurance, know what to do, prepare yourself for what situation it will be, and then leave it at that. That's
Hmm.
it. Once you know what you're going to do, you got your map, you know the roads, how are you going to get to the hospital from this place or that place? Once you know it, you're good. Don't worry about it. Don't obsess about it in your life. It's just like I said, it's just like buying car insurance. But once you pay it, forget about it, move on, enjoy your life. But have that there. Have these skills, have the ability to do these things, and then you'll be good to go, and it gives you peace of mind. So that for me, that's threat assessment. Threat assessment is more about knowing what to do than analyzing a situation, especially here in the States. Overseas, yeah, it helps a lot. You got to do threat assessments, but everyday life in the States is so random, and you're around thousands, hundreds of thousands, billions of people that you don't know. You can't guess what they're going to do. So, threat assessment in the States is knowing what to do, having the tools to do it, and then just having a good time.
Yeah. And we talked about a little bit about this with being out with your wife and kids. How is dealing with kids different than dealing with adults when it comes to EP work?
The biggest thing about kids is because their minds are still young, they're still little cave kids. That's what it is. They're pure instinct. At a young age, children are just instinct. So one of the biggest problems with children during times of emergencies isn't necessarily freezing, it's running. They'll just start running when there's a threat because
Hmm.
as a child, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out, it's your natural instinct just to run away.
Hmm.
So that's another issue during knowing where your children are and things like that. But yeah, it's difficult, generally unpredictable, but it goes around a certain behavioral pattern. Once you kind of get the idea that's that behavioral pattern, that's what you do. And also, when you pick someone up, everyone like you pick someone up, like you pick up a kid. Imagine yourself, you're in a mall. Let's say it's sometime in the future, and you're married and you have kids. And someone starts shooting. How are you going to pick them up? Well, you're going to do the around their back and then pull them to your chest. You don't want to carry someone like that. Now, where you're going to use your kid as a human shield. So it's just like with the human, just like with a grown adult, you have to know how to manipulate them and move them around so that you face the threat. This is fine if you get shot 20 times. You don't want your kid to get shot.
Hmm.
So it's knowing how to do things like that. This is one of the things I teach in the class, knowing what you're going to do in that situation, just like we talked about threat assessment, is you grab your kid and your natural instinct as a human is going to be shield your wife or protect your wife. Forget her. Grab your kid and run. That's what you're going to have to do. It sounds horrible, but you're one man.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
You save a child over an adult. Period. That's always the way it has to be.
Mm.
So these are counterintuitive, but trust me, your wife will thank you. Some of them, maybe not ones from California,
Very true.
but and ask any woman with. I mean, all women have this great motherly instinct and compassion and the ability to bond with their children. Ask any woman if you said, "Who do you want me to push off a building, you or our daughter?"
Mm.
Obviously, it's always going to be the kid.
Yeah.
So it's the right decision, but people don't know that's the right decision.
So now, moving past domestic protector, you've been doing a lot of work on the Mobile Scout School. I mean, you've been doing a lot of work on all of your classes to improve them. How, and this is interesting for me since Jason and I both went and did it with you and we brought you on for episode, what was it, 117 to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
How has Mobile Scout evolved for you and I guess for the students since the last time we talked about it?
One of the big things, like you saw in the original classes, a lot of tactical gear, like full kits,
Yeah.
things like that. We've moved away from that because
Oh,
you're not
okay.
going to wear that stuff in the States.
Yeah.
I guess you could, but you're going to look like a crazy person driving around with a HSGI rig on.
Yeah.
So basically, we civilianized it a lot more, which is exactly what it's for. It's for regular people in the United States. So we've definitely changed what we recommend for gear. We've added a lot of things into the equipment. We've emphasized having a network of people navigation, being a little less reliant on equipment, and the firearms training, which is we use airsoft for force on force because you want people to, like I said before, you want people to fail. Let's not do it with a real AR-15.
Yes.
So we modified things a lot more to having pistols, having rifles, working from a vehicle, having civilian length rifles. That's another big thing. Before on some of our first couple classes, we used it for the force on force and other training. We had the what were versions of short barreled rifles.
Yeah.
That's not something most people have, and you can't even bring them to other states. Some states you got to file paperwork, some you got to call. Most people don't have them. They're very expensive. So all of the training, all of our training rifles that the students use, they're all the same length, 16.5-inch barrel, whatever the standard is now. They're all full length rifles. So, and we even modified the way that we move them around in the vehicle a little bit. Next time I see you, I'll show you some stuff. But so people are going to have generally long barreled rifles. So I'm really happy with this course, man. I got to tell you. I mean, it started out, I thought it was kind of cool and it would be, something that some people will go to and I leave it at that. But every class it evolves. Really have to thank one Josh, my partner, because his experience is domestic, and I really came into it with the mindset of Iraq. So he calmed me down. He's like, "Shut up, dude. No one's gonna throw a hand grenade at your car." And the students, I tell you, I've taught for a long time. I taught in Iraq and places like that. You always have that one guy, you know.
Hmm.
But we get great students, man, from all different backgrounds, from CEOs of companies to active intelligence agents to former military to cooks. All those people also bring skills to the table. So
Hmm.
we get feedback from our students. We ask them, and then we add it. If it's good information and we can confirm it and research it and make sure it's viable and then test it ourselves, then we add it. That's the best part. It's always evolving. We're also still working on it, but the a website for the Mobile Scout grads where there's a lot of things have changed since the first two classes that you and Jason went through.
Hmm.
So we're going to continue to educate our students. Like they took our class 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 8 years ago. You will always get to see the current version of the class, but it's always changing, and you'll always be able to learn from other students and the evolution of the class. For after you obviously you pay for your initial class, but that'll be free forever. So it's a dictionary that just keeps growing and changing.
Oh, that's
So
really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm
but yeah,
looking
we're
forward to
really
that.
proud of it. We're like super proud of the way the class has evolved and feedback from the students, and people really seem to like it. I mean, it's miserable
Yeah, but it's
a lot of
miserable
the
in a
time.
fun way.
Yeah, it is fun, man. I tell you, I've made so many new friends from this class, from the students and stuff. I mean, guys that like come out and visit, I come out and visit them, and like we talked about before, social skills. You can network with guys. You know people in every state. We have an alumni association for the Mobile Scouts, but yeah, I made new friends, and I was talking to a buddy of mine about this a few days ago, and I was talking to another guy at the last Mobile Scout School. At a certain age, you don't really make new good friends.
Hmm.
Especially me. I'm 42. I'm an old man in this business compared to most people. So, just the opportunity to meet some really cool people that I become friends with. Shoot, I mean, that makes it worth it just for me.
Yeah.
you know and a lot of people are like they're thinking we're making a lot of money. We really aren't. The classes pay for themselves. Basically, we do it because we really do enjoy it. So
Yeah, and I remember when you
we all
told
have
me.
real jobs on the side.
Yeah, and I remember when I saw the price, the original price of the class, I was like, how's he even making any money off these things? It's really cheap. But I mean, I'm not just saying that to pump you up to the audience. It really is. It's like, wow. Because I've looked at a lot of the other schools that aren't teaching half this stuff, and that shit gets really expensive.
Yeah, especially when you throw in like meals and hotels. I mean, that's
Hmm.
pricey. In the mobile scout school, it's you eat by the trucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We still have the same menu though that y'all had because we know how much to buy now, and so we don't want to change the menu. So the instructors are maybe getting a little bit tired of it.
That's funny, dude.
But one guy in the last class was like, "Man, I can't believe we're having spaghetti and meatballs out in the field." But it's the same heavy carbs and big flavor. So, but you sleep out by the trucks, you eat the food there, so it eliminates that. So
Mm.
basically, the amount you spend is getting there and the cost of the class, and there's really nothing else to worry about. Because I understand guys, a lot of these guys are blue collar, some of them are white, but no matter what, I respect your money. If you're going to spend money and give it to us to learn something, then you need to get value out of it because making money is not easy. This is money that you could spend on your friends, your family, you could put it into your 401k, but you want to buy insurance with it, which is taking this class. So we really respect the people spend their money for this, and we want to make it as good as a class as we can. I think it's a reasonable price. So, I mean,
yeah, definitely. I think it's more than reasonable. So now, when's the next Mobile Scout and Domestic Protector classes happening?
They're all over the place, man. It's Vegas, Texas, Florida, maybe. Basically, just go to deathvalleymag.com and you'll see a little thing there for DVM Training Center, a little link, or deathvalleymag.com/DVTC. But no one's going to remember that. So just go to deathvalleymag.com or just Google Death Valley Magazine and go there. There's a link and you'll see all the updated dates. But sometimes the dates change, or classes don't fill, or another class fills more, so we add another class to it. So that's really the best place to go. And, numbers there, you can give us a call. We'll talk to you.
Cool. And I'll also be sure to put direct links to all that stuff in this episode, which will be in therabbithole.com/E140, along with all the other great resources you put out there today.
Yeah, I'll email you that list of show notes with all the links and everything like that to it, so everyone can get there to it. I mean, no one's writing down links when they listen to a podcast anyways.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's better that it's in one place. People can just go to it.
Yeah. Well, James, man, as always, it is a pleasure, whether we're on a show or hanging out in person. Dude, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, man, I really appreciate it. I always love this. Is the only podcast I go to. So
you're just saying
honestly,
that.
it's because it's the only one that's approached me, but still. But too bad we missed your partner in crime here, but I know he's a busy guy right now. But hopefully next time I come on, he'll be around and we can all make fun of you for murdering people during Mobile Scout School.
Oh, we're back to that again. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Dude, you're a legend in the Mobile Scout classes. Every time we have a class, we talk about that.
I did not know that. That's a dubious honor I have there.
Yeah, we say, hey, don't just start shooting people. I was like, and then one of the instructors was like, let's shoot Aaron. Then you just start shooting people.
I was getting tired of this. I was like, I'm bored here. Let's just start shooting people.
So now you're a permanent part of the course. So you'll live on way past your living days.
Oh, wow. I'm honored to have that place in the class.
And notorious is always better than famous too. It's cooler.
This is true. Well, James, man, thanks again for coming on, and hopefully we'll finagle you and persuade you into coming back on one more time this season.
Come on anytime that y'all want, man. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a good one, and wish you success in all your new stuff. Next time, I'll probably still be late for the thing, but hopefully I'm going to get some 19-year-old kid to come over here to the DVM headquarters, our office, and put together this very expensive, very beautiful recording studio, which I could not get to work tonight. I'm so angry about it. Well, I did take a picture of myself on it, so I look cool.
That's
pretty much it, yeah.
That's the important part.
All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you, and y'all have a good one. Tell Jason I said hey.
Will do, man.
All right, brother.
Thanks. There's a ton of links and resources from this episode. They can be found at intherabbithole.com/E140. Check them out today and post your comments on this episode. Be sure to tune in next week. I sit down with your buddy, Glenn Tate, to discuss choosing the best bug out location for fun and riding out the apocalypse. And don't forget, help us keep the lights on. Support the ITRH show and mission by becoming part of the Roving Horde Armada. You can learn more at itrh.net about all the great benefits membership gets you. Things like encrypted forums with member-only access to every episode ever produced by ITRH, including one that has never been aired before, a free copy of the book Owning Your Survival, 9 Steps for Surviving Survival and Preparedness, access to a 1-hour emergency kits for bugging out and bugging in class with special downloads. And that's just to name a few of the great things you get with your membership. Again, visit itrh.net for more details now. We're counting on supporting members just like you to help us keep the lights on. From the Lone Star State, until next time, stay safe and sound.